We waited impatiently for passengers to show up at the airport's baggage area. My brother-in-law, Bob, was there with his two daughters, Danica, 9, and Louise, 7. My son David, 12, and my daughter Sheila, 9, were with me. The children held a large sign above their heads that read, "Welcome home, mommies." 2 weeks ago, my wife Mandy and her sister Helen went on vacation to the beaches of Belize. This is a very good way to escape the cold Minnesota winters, especially in January. Finally, the plane's passengers began to appear at the door. The children burst into screams when they saw their mothers. Both women were gorgeous with their beautiful tans and beautiful smiles. Mandy kissed David and Sheila and hugged them tightly. Then she turned to me and I was rewarded with a hot kiss. I hugged her and hardly let go. "I really missed you, honey." "Wait until the evening, honey," she whispered in my ear. "I'll show you how much I missed you." And that night, she certainly proved it. After 15 years of marriage, she knows a thing or two about me. One of the things she knows is how much I find tan lines a turn-on. After the kids went to bed, we went straight to the bedroom. "Honey, go to bed and be ready to meet me when I come out of the bathroom." In an instant, I found myself waiting in bed. A few minutes later, Mandy came out of the bathroom wearing a thong bikini. Mandy's most attractive feature has always been her very beautiful face, a face made for smiles. Wherever she went, she had the most beautiful face. However, she herself was her own body's worst critic. She felt that she was too short, too thin. Her breasts weren't big enough. Her hips were too thick. A side effect of both pregnancies was that my breasts became larger and fuller. And the thong bikini definitely showed off her beautiful curves. But the best was yet to come. Mandy stood at the foot of the bed, showing off her beautiful golden tan from the beach. First, she slowly pulled down her thong, revealing a white patch of skin at the front. There were faint tan lines where the straps of the thong were, but the spot in her private area was the same milky white as when she left. Mine got excited by this vision. She slowly unbuttoned her bikini top, letting the material hang over her chest. Finally, the bikini fell to the floor, revealing the white globes of her cute little breasts. I immediately crawled to the foot of the bed, grabbed her by the waist, and pulled her towards me, kissing her and caressing her body. She got excited from my caresses. It only took me a few minutes to get her to her first peak. Several times I simply inhaled the musky scent of her body. "I missed you so much. And I missed you. It is so sweet." "I'm really glad to be back home," she replied. We spent a good part of the night getting to know each other again. A few days later, Mandy was cleaning the bathtub. Well, I was in the hallway enjoying the beautiful view of her moving ass. Mandy sensed my presence and looked over her shoulder. "Why are you standing there?" "I look at your ass and wonder what I could do if you weren't wearing pants and if the kids were already in bed," I answered, honestly. "Pervert," she giggled. "You're teasing?" She stood up and came towards me. She took off her plastic gloves, threw them over her shoulder, straight into the sink, and, teasingly, came towards me, rotating her hips. She pressed her whole body against me, feeling my excitement with her stomach. "That's how you can tease," she said. Normally, I would have pressed my hips down to increase contact, but I couldn't. A few seconds earlier, a feeling of fear came over me. I didn't know why, but there was definitely something wrong with the picture in front of me. But for the life of me, I didn't know what it was. Mandy is tired of me not responding to my teasing. "Like all men, only words and no actions," she said, thrusting her hips for the last time. She turned and grabbed the gloves in the sink. "I'd better finish the bath." It was then that I realized what a small detail had struck my subconscious. I turned pale, turned and left. "I'm going to the garage," I muttered, not caring whether Mandy heard me or not. In the garage, I sat on a workbench, lost in my thoughts. I had a bad feeling about what I had just discovered. Did Mandy cheat on me while she was in Belize? I'm sure of one thing: if Mandy tried just a little, she wouldn't have any problems finding a man willing to sleep with her, and what I saw only made sense if that's what she tried while on vacation with her sister. What will I do if I find out that she cheated on me? The answer was obvious. I'll leave her without a second thought. It will hurt. Well, that was already painful, but it's even worse because of our 2 children. Why did she do this to me, to us? Am I such a bad husband? These questions swirled around in my head for the rest of the evening, but although I had a very strong feeling that she had cheated on me, I had absolutely no evidence that she had done so. So how can I know for sure about this? The deception, if it happened 3,000 miles away, in another country. I can't confront her because she'll just deny it. Will I be able to stand up to her sister? I played with this idea for some time, but the 2 sisters were always equally stubborn. All my life, I knew sisters. If one cheated, the other did too. I had to talk to Bob about my suspicions. Sometime later, I heard Mandy calling me and returned home. "What were you doing in the garage all this time?" Mandy asked. "More than 2 hours. You'll catch a cold." "Oh, just tidying up a little," I said simply, and then one thought came to my mind. I didn't want to sleep with her. In any case, I already have a cold. This hit me this morning. I think I'll sleep on the couch for a few days. I could see that Mandy didn't like it very much. "Okay, I'll make you some herbal tea before you go to bed. Chamomile should help," she said. After Mandy went to bed, I was left alone with my thoughts. My mind was jumping randomly from one idea to another. Why did she do this? What can I do? Should I talk to Bob to find out if Helen cheated? At some point, I realized that there was a surefire way to find out if Mandy was cheating. She became addicted to keeping in touch with all her friends and acquaintances. Mandy has at least 600 or 700 friends on Facebook. There's even more in her Yahoo address book. If she contacted someone in Belize, I'm sure she exchanged information via email so they could keep in touch. However, I don't know if she will use her current email account since we know each other's passwords. I finally fell asleep as a plan began to form. The next day I was very tired and had difficulty concentrating on work. I made an appointment with a divorce lawyer the next day, Friday. Then I called Bob and asked him to meet me for lunch. He was surprised but agreed. I told him about my discovery. At first he laughed at me, but I soon convinced him that it was serious. He will try to find out if Helen cheated on him. Claiming a bad case of the flu, I left the office early and returned home at 3 p.m. Immediately, I installed keyboard tracking software on our home computer. A week passed before I was able to find out the truth. Mandy logged into another email account using the username BeachDreams1975. Her password consisted of the names and ages of our children, Shedav92. Just a few days after returning from Belize, she was in daily contact with Brad. The emails were over the top for both Mandy and Helen. Helen also slept with a guy named Steve. I forwarded all the emails sent and received by Mandy to myself, and then erased all traces of my surveillance. I then sent Bob several emails from my email account. I learned that they had sex almost from the first day in Belize, and they even switched partners several times. They were already talking about meeting again next month in Chicago. The girls will pretend they're going shopping, and the 2 idiots, longtime friends, will pretend they're going to watch the Chicago Blackhawks. A quick search of Mandy's Facebook page and Helen's page turned up 2 recent friends, Brad Simmons and Steve Reiner, both from Illinois. Both are married. I have you in my hands, you idiots. I had a difficult task to complete. Bob denied that Helen and Mandy were cheating. He kept my suspicions a secret, but never truly believed that his loving wife would cheat on him. I understood his position. Looking at Mandy's behavior towards me and the children, it was hard to believe that she was going to end the marriage. She seemed so loving and caring that I sometimes believed myself to be wrong. It definitely helped as I had to resume regular sex. I called Bob at work. "Hi, Bob, this is Jack," I said. "Can you log into your personal email account from work?" "Certainly. Did you send me something?" "Yes. Read all the letters and call me back." I waited half an hour for his call. "Damn thing," Bob shouted over the phone. "I'll kick her to the curb tonight." What a creature. I love this woman. I would do anything for her. "Calm down, Bob," I asked him. "I have a plan, and I need your help. We can't let them know what we know." "I can't. I just cannot. I have a need to hurt her very much," said Bob. "We'll do it, Bob. We'll do it. I can promise you that. But for now, pull yourself together. Call home and leave a message saying you're working late tonight. We'll meet in a pub in the old town, and I'll tell you about my plans." Later that evening, Bob and I held our first war council. "Bob, what could harm our wives? Besides a kick in the ass?" "Except any form of violence," I said. Bob didn't answer my question. "A shame. I want to embarrass them in front of their loved ones. You know our father-in-law, Tom, is crazy about his 2 girls," I told Bob. Bob agreed. "This is a well-known fact. But you also know what he hates most in life, even more than the IRS." A knowing smile appeared on Bob's face. "Cheating wives," said Bob. Tom's ex-wife, mother of Mandy and Helen, had been cheating on him throughout their marriage, he later found out. After the divorce, she received custody of the 2 girls, the house, generous alimony and child support, and most of his company. He had to borrow a lot of money to buy her share of the business. It took years to get his company back on sound financial footing. Now he sold the business and lived well, but alone. He often visited his daughters and grandchildren. I explained my plan. We only had 2 weeks left to act like loving husbands. "Do as I do, Bob," I explained. "Catch a few colds and work a lot late into the night. You'll be too sick or too tired to perform in bed. Bring your intimacy to once a week for show, and soon we will be free of them." Of course, I returned very late that evening. Mandy was already in bed, and I was just faking a terrible headache. I thought for a while about the plan of revenge, but soon fell asleep. I already knew about the impending betrayal when Mandy told me that she and Helen were planning a shopping trip to Chicago. I told her it was a great idea. She expected to stay at a hotel in the city center. To show my love and support, I even booked the room myself, using our joint credit card. The room was reserved for Mr. and Miss Johnston, double occupancy, as Helen and Mandy were to share a room. The girls were overjoyed. Bob also offered to pay for the room. This room was reserved for Mr. and Miss Durocher, double occupancy, as Helen and Mandy were to share this room. Bob and I arranged everything so that each of them thought that we were renting one room. Although we knew the girls were not going to share a room, for them, we had no idea their lovers would be there. The girls planned to take Friday off, fly to Chicago in the morning, and return on a late flight from Chicago on Sunday. The following week, I spoke with Tom Raines, Mandy's father. I told him I wanted to surprise the 2 girls by bringing the kids and himself to Chicago for a family reunion, since the trip was just 2 weeks after our 15th wedding anniversary. Tom thought it was a great idea. I asked Tom if he could book 3 rooms. He thought it would be a big surprise. Bob and I were outraged by our wives' behavior the morning we dropped them off at the airport. They acted like 2 schoolgirls on their way to their first date. Laughing at nothing and everything, they were filled with nervous energy. At the security gate, we kissed them on the cheek. They didn't even notice that neither Bob nor I said, "I love you," to them. Bob was driving us back to town. I took my cell phone and quickly called. "Hi, this is Johnston," I said to the private detective I hired. "They'll land in Chicago soon. Is everything in place?" "Yes," Alan White replied. "They will be in your rooms 201 and 203, and everything is already set up for both audio and video. I'll have everything when you land tomorrow." The next morning, we all met at the airport. During the flight, Tom switched seats with my son David and sat next to me. "Listen, son, don't think I'm just a stupid old geezer," he told me. "You and Bob look like you're heading to a funeral. You two are up to something. What is the problem?" "I'm very sorry that I kept you in the dark, Tom," I replied. "I know that you love your daughters more than anything in the world. I'm afraid to say that I have very bad news. They're cheating on you guys, aren't they?" he asked point blank. Yes, I answered. They slept with 2 guys they met and had sex for 2 weeks while they were traveling to Belize. I have a private investigator collecting all the evidence we need for a divorce, and we will file it as soon as we catch them in bed with their lovers. Tom put his hand on my shoulder in a fatherly way. I'm very sorry, son. I know how much it hurts. I wish the few years they lived with me were enough to make some sense in their minds, but I fear that being raised by their mother for most of their adolescence has been a constant bad influence on them. Tom began to cry. I didn't know I could suffer so much again, he said quietly. Having come to his senses, he stood up and returned to his place. Alan White met us at the Chicago airport. He came to me with 2 envelopes, one for Bob and one for me. They contained a set of incriminating photographs, as well as a DVD recording the events of the previous night. He informed us that the process server would contact us shortly and that his operative was monitoring the 2 bedrooms. His assistant will tell us about the most compromising and awkward moment to break into the lovers. The wives of Simmons and Reiner will receive similar packages by midday. Bob and I asked Tom and Alan to look after the children for a while. We needed to see how bad it was. My heart sank when I saw Mandy in every sexual position imaginable. There was even a double penetration photo from 2 idiots. As far as we could see, they had unprotected sex. Bob and I will need to get tested for STDs in Minneapolis. Alan White then called his assistant to see if the hotel was clear for us. The lovers went out for lunch, so everything was in order. Tom ordered 3 numbers. Bob and I asked for an additional keycard for rooms 201 and 203, which were registered in our names. Both keycards were issued after the clerk checked our IDs. We told the receptionist that our children had planned a surprise so that he would not alert our wives. We all went up to the 3rd floor where our rooms were located. After an hour of waiting, Alan White called. They returned from lunch and are in their rooms. They switched partners. Mandy is with Reiner now, and Helen is with Simmons, he said. I'm in the lobby, and the process server just showed up. I'll send it to your room. I turned off the phone and got out of bed. It's time to go, guys, I said cheerfully to the children. And don't forget what I told you, Sheila, and you too, David. Grandpa and I will enter the room first, and when I give you the signal, you will shout, "Surprise, Mom." Understood? No problem, Dad, said David. And under no circumstances do you enter the room until I tell you to. Yes, that's right. We understand everything, Dad. Go. We walked up the stairs and stopped in front of room 201. I inserted the key and quietly opened the door. Tom and I went inside, the 2 children behind us. However, they did not wait. As soon as the door opened, they shouted, "Surprise, Mom! We are here!" Mandy had sex with Reiner. Our appearance was truly a surprise. Reiner rushed to the trousers lying on the floor, quickly put them on, grabbed the rest of his clothes, and ran out of the room. Well, at least he reacted quickly. Mandy jumped out of bed and tried to gather her clothes. "No, no, no! This can't be true! No! What are you doing here?" she exclaimed. "Hey, Mommy's naked!" squeaked Sheila, who squeezed herself between Tom and me. I snapped my finger. The process server entered the room. "Mandy Johnston?" he asked the only naked woman. "This is my mother," Sheila said, trying to be helpful. The processing server handed her an envelope. "You've been served," he said, and took a photo of Mandy holding the envelope, trying to hide her breasts. He left. "Come on, children. Let's leave Mom while she gets dressed." We left the room. Mandy was crying on the floor. She knew all too well what was in the envelope. Bob and his children were in the hallway. "Bob," I said, "this is your show now." Things didn't go so well with Helen. Simmons was the aggressive type. When he was pulled away from sex, he became very angry at the intruders. He hit Tom in the face. Bob needed no more incentive to express his disappointment, and the first thing Simmons felt was Bob punching him and Helen scratching his face in defense of her father. It was one decent gesture on her part to protect her old man. I walked into the room, grabbed Simmons and threw him into the bathroom, away from the kid's eyes, throwing his clothes after him. "Get dressed and get out of here, asshole," I said. Tom, Bob, and the children left the room. Without any shame, Helen followed them, covered only with a blanket. Her father turned to her with a stern face. "Go back to the room and get dressed." Like the little girl she was at heart, she turned and walked into the bedroom. The server process had fled during the argument, but was now standing in the doorway. "Hélène Durocher?" "Yes." He handed her the envelope. "You're served." We all went back upstairs. The original plan was to spend the night there and talk to our wives one last time. But I wasn't in the mood to be in the same room with Mandy. I grabbed our luggage and told the kids we were going home. Tom told us he wanted to stay. He had a lot to tell his daughters. Bob and his children returned with us to Minneapolis. 4 months later, despite Mandy's numerous pleas for forgiveness, a judge reviewed our case and granted an uncontested divorce. It took Tom a lot of effort to convince Mandy to sign the divorce papers. The house was mine because I inherited it from my parents before I met Mandy. I also received primary custody of the children, but I did not ask for any money from Mandy. Tom made sure they were well taken care of. Our other assets were divided equally, and I received a generous gift from Tom the following Christmas to get me back on my feet financially. As he explained to me, in any case, it was from the money of Mandy's future inheritance. Bob's divorce went much the same way, except their house was shared property. However, shortly after the divorcee, Bob and Helen started dating again, and I'm pretty sure they'll end up getting back together. It's a pity. As far as Mandy and I are concerned, there's no way in hell I'll ever take her back. I kind of believed her when she said she was very sorry for what she did. I also believe that she still loves me. My problem is that her betrayal completely trampled my love for her and left all the love in the dust of her betrayal on the beaches of Belize. I couldn't love her anymore. For the sake of the kids, we're very polite to each other, but that's all I'll ever do. One day, when she was waiting for the children to get ready to go with her, she asked me, "I'm curious, Jack. How did you even know about the stupid thing I did in Belize?" "It's my love for tan lines," I replied. "I don't understand. I was in a bikini all the time. We never went to a nude beach or anything like that." "Think about it, Mandy. What did you do every time you cleaned the bathroom with all the necessary chemicals?" "I gathered everything I needed, put on plastic gloves, and rolled up my sleeves," she said. "You forgot the one thing you always did first," I said. "You took off your rings, engagement ring and wedding ring. There was no tan line on your finger. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one. Listening to the next one. Listening to the next one. Listen